Okay, welcome to part 2 of the stage tutorial. In this part we are going to be fixing some of the lighting so it looks a little bit more realistic and adding some cool text and some lights, and it's going to end up looking really cool. So first of all, on this wood floor layer we have here, it looks a little dark to me, so let's add a levels adjustment layer. So go down to your levels adjustment layer icon and let's choose levels and move that mid-tone gray slider to the right, and that's going to make it darker. So something like that looks pretty good, and we can just close that adjustments panel, and that levels adjustment is affecting everything below it. So in order to fix that, we want it to only affect the wood floor, so right click on the levels layer and create a clipping mask, and that will make it so it only affects that wood floor you see there. So that's called a clipping mask. Next thing we want to do is fix the lighting on the wood floor so it looks a little bit more realistic. So make sure you have the wood floor selected and go down to your effects layer style icon down here and choose gradient overlay. First thing you want to do is click on reverse and reduce the scale to about 25% or so. And you can actually move that gradient up by just clicking right on the layer and dragging up, and just get it to where it just kind of meets the top of the floor there, and it's kind of nice and a smooth transition. And change the blend mode from normal to multiply, and that looks a little bit better. Okay, now I want actually another gradient overlay on top of the wood floor, just to add a little bit more drama and stuff to the wood floor, but we can't actually put two of the same layer style on the same layer. So in order to do that, we're going to have to cheat a little bit. So command click on that levels adjustment layer. So now we have both of these layers selected, and we're going to go up here to filter, convert for smart filters. That's going to change both of those layers and group them together as one single smart object. And then we can add another layer style on that smart object. So go down here to the effects icon and choose gradient overlay once more. And this time we're going to do a radial gradient and choose reverse again. And we're just going to drag that up, and we're going to increase the scale this time to about 150%. Maybe let's try 125% instead. And then change the blend mode from normal to soft light. You can see that kind of adds kind of another dramatic dimension to the floor that looks really cool. Maybe we can reduce the opacity maybe to about 80% or so, and click OK. Alright, now we can fix the lighting on some of the curtains so they look a little bit more realistic. So open that front curtains group and grab the burn tool over here in the tools bar, and it's the second one there. And with the one of these side curtains selected, we are going to set the range to midtones, the exposure to about 20, and reduce the hardness all the way down to 0. We're going to grab a nice large brush, and we're just going to brush on one of these side curtains here just to darken it up a little bit on top to make it look like it's behind this layer up here. And we can do the same thing to this other side over here. I'm just going to brush a little bit on that to make it look a little more realistic. And then we can do the same thing to this top curtain too to make it look like it is behind the other curtain layers. Something like that looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to add a cool sign that it'll make it look like it is actually there in the scene. So you can close that front curtains group, and just below the front curtains group we can create a new text layer. Press the letter T on your keyboard to grab the text tool. We're going to choose Denot, which is official SGA font, and we're going to use a 250 point font. And just click, and let's write something stupid like the show exclamation point, and can enter to commit that, and let's grab our move tool and just move that somewhere around here, and we're going to make it kind of look like three-dimensional with using layer styles. Go down to your effects layer style icon down here and choose inner shadow to begin with. And let's set the angle to about 144. Your settings will be different initially. I just tried these out and it seems to work. Yours might be a little bit different depending on the size of your document. But let's set the distance to about 6, and a choke to about 44, a size of 8, until you get something that looks roughly like that. And then let's also add a stroke onto this. Let's set the size to 10, position to outside, blend mode normal, opacity 100, and let's change the color to kind of a nice green, something like that. You can click OK. And that's it for this round of layer style, but I want to add another stroke on top of this, but as you remember earlier about the wood floor, you can't add two of the same layer style on the same layer, so we need to cheat a little bit and turn that text layer into a smart object. So go up to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters. Now that it's a smart filter, we can add another layer style on there. So I'll go again to your effects icon and choose outer glow this time. Actually, let's add the stroke now. So let's do a stroke of about 9 pixels this time. Position set to outside, opacity 100, and let's change the color to let's do kind of like a bluish color, kind of like a light blue, something like that. Looks good. And let's do a bevel and emboss on there also. So choose bevel and emboss, and style, let's do a stroke emboss. And let's do a technique of smooth, and let's change the depth to something around 500. Let's do up and a size of 10, and soften at 0. Angle, let's change the angle to something around 140 or so. You can uncheck use global light, and let's increase the opacity of the highlights all the way to 100 so it really stands out. And last but not least, let's do an outer glow on this, just kind of set it apart from its background. So you can set the blend mode to screen, and let's choose a kind of a white color and increase the size to about 90 or so, and just reduce the opacity of that, and that'll just kind of set it apart from the background a little bit. And that looks pretty good. Let's move that text layer using our move tool, and we can reduce the size by invoking free transform, Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and just holding down your Shift and your Option keys to constrain it, and just drag that in a little bit. And our sign is looking pretty good. So now let's add some rope lights that the sign is hanging from. So let's grab our brush tool on a new layer, create a new layer, clicking on the new layer icon down here, and let's set the brush to around a size of maybe 15 pixels or so. Make sure your foreground color is set to white over here, and opacity at 100, and make sure the hardness is all the way up at 100 too. So we're going to do that step and repeat again. So you can click anywhere in your document just once with the white brush, and let's zoom in a little bit by pressing Command plus. And we're going to Command click on that layer to select everything that's in that layer. And then we're going to hold down the Command Option T on a Mac and Control Alt T on a PC. You need to zoom in quite a bit to see that there. And then Option Shift Drag, that's Alt Shift Drag on a PC. You need to click first and then Option Shift Drag. And just drag that over until there's a little bit of space in between there. And you can hit Enter. And then we're going to do that step and repeat. So hold down Command Option Shift T on a Mac, Control Alt Shift T on a PC. We're just going to repeat that a bunch of times until we get a nice long line of white dots right there. We can just deselect right there, and let's add a layer style to that so it looks a little bit more like a rope light. Go down to your effects icon, and let's choose a bevel and emboss. And if we zoom in, we can kind of see what's going on. Let's set the depth a little bit higher, soften a little bit. We can reduce the depth a little bit. You can play around with your settings so they kind of look a little bit more round. And let's set an outer glow also. Let's change the color to kind of a bright yellow color, something like that. And we can increase the size a little bit too. Maybe reduce the opacity just a little bit. Click OK. So then we have one set of rope lights here. You can move those around by pressing Command T. And let's rotate those in a little bit and move them up just so they're kind of find a good spot. Right there looks pretty good. We're going to create a duplicate of that layer, so Command J on a Mac, Control J on a PC. Let's move that duplicate with the Move tool by pressing V. And let's just move that over here, somewhere around, maybe right there looks pretty good. And let's move both of these rope lights below the text. So you can just select both of them by holding down the Command key and just dragging below the text layer. And now it kind of looks like they're hanging from rope lights. Now we're going to do something kind of cool. We're going to add a shadow beneath the show to make it look a little bit more realistic. So we're going to Command click on the text layer, and that will select everything that is in that layer. We're going to create a new layer by going to the new layer icon here, and we're going to fill that selection with black. So go up to Edit and Fill and choose Black. Click OK. You can deselect, and with our Move tool, we're just going to move that down. You can hold down your Shift 2 so it moves straight down. We're going to bring up Free Transform again by pressing Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and we're just going to drag that top handle down so it looks like it's from the right perspective on the floor. So let's squash a little bit. You can hit Enter, and let's blur that quite a bit. So go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian, oops, not Lens Blur, sorry about that. Go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and blur it maybe about maybe 15 pixels or so, 15-20 pixels. Click OK. And maybe set the blend mode of that layer to overlay, maybe soft light. Something, yeah, soft light looks good. And if it's not intense enough on soft light, you can duplicate that layer by pressing Command J, maybe reducing the opacity of that second layer just a little bit. And that makes it look like the show is actually on the stage because it's reflecting a shadow on the floor. And last but not least, we can add a bit of a spotlight. So let's create a new layer by pressing the new layer icon and grab our brush tool, set to white, and we're going to increase the size to something about maybe 300, maybe 400, 500 pixels or so. Hardness set to, let's try about 70% or something like that. And just click once with a white brush and set the blend mode of that layer to soft light. And then with your Move tool, you can move that spotlight around wherever you want. You can even animate that if you want to, but that's another tutorial. So there you have it. That is pretty much your finished product.